Everyone, and welcome. My name is Giles Flower. I'm the head of sales and account management at CFRA, independent research firm. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Tam, the senior equity analyst from CFRA. He works in our London office. Andrew covers the European consumer sector. It's been a busy week for Andrew and many other CFRA analysts. They recently conducted a webinar on the global grocery industry and the grocery wars that are about to play out. Also published a thematic report that does a deep dive into how automation and robotics play a major role within this industry. So it's an interesting and timely time to look at this industry. So we'll find out a bit more information from Andrew. So over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Giles. It's great to be here. So yes, we published a report looking at some of the trends happening in online grocery and really the increasing role that machines, robotics and automation are going to play in the sector going forward, really. So what you've seen here, I guess first up, is a dramatic shift in the consumer preferences towards online grocery shopping. So here in the UK, we've seen online penetration for grocery more than double in 2020, from just 5% to well over 12% by the start of this year. And it's really accelerated a long-term secular trend that was already really in place over a number of years. And certainly this is not just a UK specific trend either. So you've seen also in the US, the penetration there grow from just 3% in 2019 to well over 10% last year.
Okay, so isn't this something that's just going to normalise post-COVID and lockdowns easing and social distancing kind of measures ceased? Will it just go away? Look,
it's a good question there. So I think certainly there's going to be some level of normalisation coming through as we start eating out more, rather than having every single meal at home as an example. So yes, you will see some normalisation from the really, I guess, strong like-for-like sales growth that the supermarkets worldwide really have experienced. I think that was a bit of a sugar hit, we think, that will eventually wane. But look, online grocery is very much well in its infancy, even globally. So if you look at non-food retail as an example, the penetration rates there are closer to 30 or 40% in the UK, and even in some individual categories, it's even higher. So there's no reason why online grocery sort of can't reach those levels of adoption both here and globally as well. So more and more customers are really enjoying the benefits of this and the convenience of it, and really aren't looking back. I mean, why drive to a supermarket and stand, in supermarket checkout queues if you really don't have to?
Sure, understood. So given this kind of growth in the online grocery, how are traditional supermarkets capitalising on all this?
Well, look, all of the major supermarket chains, both I suppose here and also in the US, have really done a really incredible job in a very short time frame. Is really the changes that have been brought about, by the pandemic were really thrust upon them. So customer orders, online orders, effectively doubled overnight. So they really had to find a way to flex their own capacity to really keep up and meet that level of customer demand. So as an example, the UK chains here almost doubled their order capacity in just a matter of months to cater for this. So you saw Tesco open new urban fulfilment centres, really ramp up their capacity to serve from, I think it was just 750,000 orders, which is quite a large number, to well over 1.4 million orders a week. And really that spurt in catering to the online channels really helped those like-for-like sales numbers for the chains here. And it's a trend that you've observed overseas as well. But certainly I fear that some of these sales have really put on at rather unprofitable margins. So there's certainly an element of supermarkets spinning their wheels for high levels of sales growth, but not a lot of that is really flowing through to the bottom line ultimately.
Wow, okay, it's very interesting. So why is online grocery shopping so unprofitable?
Yeah, great question. So this really stems from the way that grocery orders are currently fulfilled. So if you think about how all the supermarket chains, grocery chains have really ramped up that capacity in light of COVID, the answer is people, and really lots of them. So supermarkets have really turned to picking orders from their existing stores initially. So they all through their specialist dark stores using really armies of new staff. So that grocery order, in which a typical supermarket would have earned, a 2 to 4% margin on, well, that also now has to absorb all these incremental labour costs from, the pick staff all the way through to those additional delivery drivers as well. We saw in August last year, Tesco alone, they decided to permanently hire an additional 16,000 people, an additional 10,000 order pickers, and an additional 3,000 delivery drivers alone, just thanks to that surge in online demand.
Wow, it's amazing. So what the supermarkets doing about this to kind of address the kind of margin issues and problems they have there?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, and that's where the grocery wars, I suppose, as we call them, are really being played out. It's really being played out through increasing levels of automation, robotics. Really, the aim of the game is, I suppose, to minimise or decrease the level of human staffing and labour intensity that's required to fulfil these orders, I suppose. Because it's clear that the current situation really is unsustainable, particularly as the online channel continues to grow and grow strongly. And so what you've seen is the likes of the online pure play grocers like Ocado roll out really large, highly centralised customer fulfilment centres, or CFCs as they call them. They can really handle hundreds of thousands of orders in a given week. And by contrast, if you look at an in-store pick solution, which a lot of the supermarkets have, turned to initially, that doesn't scale very well. It's highly labour intensive, and it can only really, fulfil a few thousand orders a week, out of probably one of even their largest stores. Other players out there are out in the marketplace. Well, they're implementing smaller scale micro fulfilment centres, or MFCs as they call them. These are typically attached to existing stores or a dark store, and really ultimately used to increase the level of automation again. But same idea, same concept, but on a slightly more decentralised scale, with the idea of sort of lowering the last mile delivery costs and being closer to the end customer, I suppose. But ultimately, the key difference with either a CFC or an MFC is really the use of that additional level of manual handling equipment, conveyor belts, robots, and so forth, to really bring the goods directly to the order packers rather than having to walk around the store picking items off the shelf. Really, so the next step, I suppose, in terms of automation, in terms of these fulfillment centres, is really looking at, how do you automate, say, the decanting of pallets as they come into the warehouse, as well as, the use of robotic picking arms to actually pack the physical orders themselves, using things like, soft grip technology to, handle delicate items such as a bag of crisps or avocados and placing those into customer bags.
It's fascinating. So what does this mean for the industry overall? Are these so-called grocery wars going to begin to heat up from now on?
Yeah, well, I think there's two main takeaways that we cover off in our thematic report. So number one, the first one is that you really, as a supermarket, have to adapt to this new normal and thrive. Alternatively, you will get disrupted, lose share, and probably get left behind. So even someone like Aldi, who are notoriously cost conscious, they've been really forced to come to the party as well and move into online sales in a small way, but they've still acknowledged that, they can't be left behind, albeit, using an in-store pick method, which we've sort of discussed as being unprofitable. Players like Ocado in the UK, they're currently growing at like 39, 40% year on year. So they'll continue to take share if you lag behind. I guess the second thing, number two, is that ultimately the spoils of these grocery wars, as we call them, will really be shared amongst the industry's largest, who really have that scale to invest. So, companies like a Walmart, a Kroger, or Albertsons in the US, or even Tesco here as well. I mean, they have that ability to invest hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds each day to benefit here. So meanwhile, you've got the smaller players. They don't have that scale. They can't afford it. And we think ultimately they're the ones that are going to be left behind. So in the US, where you have a much more fragmented industry to begin with, we think that ultimately is ripe for consolidation, particularly as the move to online continues to gather further pace.
Okay, and within that, Andrew, you mentioned Ocado is a stock I've tracked for many years. How do you think they're going to benefit from all this?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Well, Ocado has certainly evolved, haven't they? So whilst they're still thought of really as a large pure play online grocer here in the UK, they're significantly more than that. So they've taken their proven UK fulfillment model and they've now then gone out and sold that to 9 separate grocery partners worldwide, so across 8 different key markets. But what that ultimately means is that they move from a sort of a £200 roughly addressable grocery market here in the UK to well over, 2.8 trillion pounds in the key markets that they've targeted with their partners. So going forward, we think that, Ocado will become more of a, I suppose, global automation technology provider rather than just being a seller of groceries online. They've currently got 50 CFCs, as they call them, committed or agreed with their partners. They've currently got 17 of these CFC sheds being built around the world. So we think the growth looks very attractive from here on. Very strong revenue, very strong earnings as these sheds ramp up and go live. We're expecting mid-teens revenue growth over that next decade, as well as a strong move into profitability by mid-decade as the critical mass of these sheds really come online. It's really exciting times.
It certainly is very, very interesting, Andrew. Really appreciate that. So there you have it, folks. Adapt and grow with the rise of grocery machines, or be disrupted and left behind. So really appreciate that, Andrew, the insight you have there and for your time today. So to learn more about CFRA, please visit our website at cfraresearch.com or contact us at cservices@cfraresearch.com. If you did miss the webinar on grocery wars and the rise of the machines, visit our website. That's website at go.cfraresearch.com/grocery_wars to access the replay. We will put a slide up so you got further information on that at the end of this video. So thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you.